Salutations, every pup, and welcome to Chapter 16 of the one they call Broccoli by Texiliaz. As always, the link to the fic will be in the description below. And with that out of the way, let's get on into the video. Chapter 16, A Trip to the Hospital/USJ Aftermath. Summary. Broccoli visits the hospital with his dad. Izuku babysits Slushie. The vestiges are growing restless and feeling powerless, watching this new holder stubbornly making their life much more difficult than it has to be. And Broccoli gets a job? Author's notes. Hello, everyone. Sorry it's been so long. Started new dose of medicine, so been feeling a bit under the weather. But hopefully this almost 8,000 word chapter will make up for it. It was only supposed to be like 2,000 words, but then I kept adding stuff and it just kept building. I just hope it doesn't feel too all over the place. Anyway, hope you enjoy. Trigger warnings. Anxiety, mentions of neglect and abuse, hospitals, and panic attacks. Izuku's point of view. To his credit, Broccoli had stayed still the whole car ride there, as well as their walk through the hospital. The people at the reception had cooed over him, making him shrink back and hide against Toshi's jacket. People all around them were staring and pointing fingers at them once they saw the fluffy green kitten. Broccoli just whined and hid further against his dad, almost climbing into his jacket in the process of getting away from all the curious eyes. But as soon as the door to Shota's room opened, he couldn't sit still anymore. He eagerly leapt out of Toshi's arms and ran over to Shota, throwing himself at him. His kitten form didn't weigh much, and the man barely reacted under all the bandages. Broccoli rubbed his head against his chin, whimpering silently, telling him how sorry he was. Behind him, he heard Toshi close the door and clear his throat. Sho? Where were you? Shota grit out, his cold tone making both Broccoli and Toshi wince. I'm so sorry. I thought I had more time. I didn't want any of this to happen, I swear. There was a tense pause, and Broccoli glanced between them worriedly. Then the bandaged man sighed. You promised you wouldn't be late, Shota said, his voice sounding tired and strained. I know, Toshi answered, hunching into himself further. And yet, you were. I know, but not on purpose. And I know it's no excuse, but I really thought I had more time left, but I didn't, and I... What do you mean, Toshinori? Shota asked, cutting the rambling man off. Toshi winced at the use of his name and sat down on the chair next to the bed. It's one for all. It's leaving much faster than I anticipated. So when I say I believed I had more time, I really, truly believed I had more time. But after just 2 hours, I had reached my limit. If I had known my time limit had gone down so fast, then I would have never jeopardized you or the students. I wish I could go back and fix this, and I understand you're mad, and I'm really sorry that this happened. Broccoli's eyes widened, and he felt his heart drop. It's leaving him that quickly? As if the vestiges could read his mind, Nana appeared next to him. It's not your fault, kiddo. It was gonna happen eventually. Broccoli nodded solemnly before his attention got dragged back to his dad's when Shota let out another sigh. At least you showed up. Eventually, the man grumbled. And none of the kids got seriously hurt. Well, except for the problem child. I heard you also had a pretty close one yourself. Toshi grimaced and clutched at his side, which Broccoli knew was bandaged. Yes, it was pretty close. If it weren't for the students, I probably wouldn't be here right now. Shota grumbled something, and Toshi leaned closer. I'm sorry, what was that? I said I'm glad you're here, you big, dumb idiot. Toshi barely managed to suppress a sob, and Broccoli pointedly looked the other way, feeling like he was intruding. I'm I'm glad you are here too, Shoda. I don't I don't want to lose you. Don't worry. I'm not going anywhere, the man said, his voice sounding rough and like he was holding back tears, too. They talked for another moment, just going over what had happened. Both were still pretty shaken up over how close that had been. But then Toshi cleared his throat, a small smile tugging at his lips. So, young Midoriya called me Dad today, Toshi said carefully. That earned a surprised snort from Shota, his whole frame shaking while Broccoli wanted the ground to swallow him whole. Shota then grew silent and hummed. Now that you mention it, I think he called me that, too, Shota muttered, sounding deep in thought. He did? When? Toshi asked, eyes widening with surprise. Broccoli's eyes widened too, having hoped that Shota hadn't heard him back then. During the attack, the self-sacrificing fool ran towards me to attack the Nomu. I think he screamed, Dad? You sure that's not just wishful thinking? Toshi teased slightly. Shota huffed out an amused laugh at that. I could say the same about you, he teased back, the air around them steadily growing more comfortable. But no, I'm not sure. There was a lot happening. And then I blacked out, he hummed before trailing off. They were quiet again after that, and Broccoli looked between them, wondering if he should do something or perhaps leave. But then, I'm worried about the kid, Shota sighed. Broccoli groaned internally and buried his head under his paws. Please, stop talking about me. I'm fine. You are the one looking like a damn mummy. Next to them, Toshi sighed deeply as well. Me too. I guess Sukauchi already filled you in on what the villain said to young Midoriya? Shota hummed again. He did. It is quite worrying how they targeted him like that. There was a pause, and then, have you found anything new regarding his parents? Wait, what? Broccoli's head snapped up, and he stared wide-eyed between Toshi and Shota. Toshi just looked tired and shook his head. No, not since last time. Still no dad in sight, and his mom has a clean record. And according to the authorities, there is still no sign of neglect or abuse, he said, making quotation marks at the last part. Why? You think there might be a connection? Toshi then hummed, leaning his elbows against the bed. You've been stalking me? Broccoli glared at his dads, feeling offended at the breach of privacy. Kiddo, they've been literally looking into your parents since the first week of training you, Nana sighed, shaking her head. They have what? Dads, what the hell? Toshi's gaze turned to him, and the man chuckled. Broccoli, it's glaring at us, he said, sounding amused. Is that so? Shota chuckled. Getting a bit jealous when the attention isn't on you. Broccoli huffed at that and booped Shota on the chin, being mindful of his injuries. Maybe we could let them meet one day? I think young Midoriya would like Broccoli. Broccoli did his best not to cringe at that idea, because boy was that a weird concept. I don't know if Broccoli would like that, considering how I found him, Shota answered quietly. I don't exactly blame him if he doesn't like kids. Ah, that is true. Still, something to keep in mind, Toshi hummed. Or what do you say, Broccoli? The man continued, flashing a smile at the cat. Knowing that Shota couldn't see him, Izuku gave Toshi the best flat stare he could muster and firmly shook his head. Toshi sputtered, and Shota asked him what was wrong. He just shook his head at me! Shota laughed at that, wincing at the pain from his wounds. They ended up staying the night, Toshi having fallen asleep on the chair next to Shota's bed and Broccoli laying curled up by their side. He couldn't sleep, though, no matter how exhausted he felt after today. His mind just wouldn't shut down. Broccoli huffed out a sigh and sat up, staring out the window. They were so high up, you could even see the stars from here. Kiddo? Nana asked, her voice echoing through his head. Are you okay? I need you to be honest with me, Broccoli thought, voice clear as it rang through his mind and reached his headmate. Of course, Nana answered immediately, floating closer to his side. Have I met them before? Those villains? I mean, did I meet them and just forget about it? He asked hesitantly, glancing at Nana. The woman thought for a moment before shaking her head. No, not that we are aware of. But I guess if you have met them, then it probably was before you got One for All. We promised to tell you if you ever forgot something, remember? I know, but what if I did meet them and what if I'm a villain? I've always wanted to be a hero, but what if I'm evil, Nana? And oh god, my quirk. What if I got it from Whoa, hey, kiddo, slow down, Nana said, putting her hands up in front of him, looking like she wanted to hug him but knew she couldn't. You're not evil. Remember what you read about? Your alters may change some character traits or memories, but it won't change your morals. And you're good. So no, Izuku, you are not evil. You hear me? I don't want you to think like that. But my quirk, he sobbed, is really strange for you to have, she cut in. But honestly, a lot of things about you are pretty darn strange. So for all we know, you might have just been a late bloomer. Just because you have the extra toe joint like that other teen has, doesn't mean that you got your quirk from the literal devil. Alright? She pointedly said, her voice leaving no room for argument. Broccoli's ears laid flat against his head, but eventually he nodded sadly. Okay. They stayed like that for a while, just silently watching the stars. Broccoli slowly turned his gaze away from the window and over to his dad's. Something else on your mind? Nana asked gently. Why me? What do you mean? Why did All Might choose me? And why are they so worried all the time? Why is Shoda not hating me for always snapping at him? I just don't understand why. His thoughts were cut off by a gentle laugh and a ghostly hand ruffling his fur, or at least doing the motion of ruffling it. He looked up at Nana in confusion, finding her kneeling by the bed and looking at him with such sad and yet fond eyes. Because they love you, kiddo. They love all of you, she told him softly, her eyes shining in the moonlight. They see you as their own kid, you know. They want you in their lives. Broccoli's mind came to a halt, and he froze, forgot how to breathe, and finding himself just staring at her. What? He asked faintly. Nana, what the hell? We look away for 2 minutes and you tell the kid without us? Diagoro suddenly yelled, his shadowy form appearing next to Nana and making them both jump about a foot into the air. Wait, she told him? Nana, you knew I wanted to be there for it, Yoichi said, betrayal clear in his voice. Sorry, the moment just felt too good to pass up, and it just slipped out, Nana said apologetically, holding her hands out in peace before her. Well, there goes that reveal, Hikage said. Well, anyway. Whoa, Izuku, are you okay? At the sound of Hikage's slightly panicked voice, all the focus was suddenly turned to Broccoli, and he shrunk back further into himself, curling into a small ball. Izuku? Nana, what did you do? I didn't do anything. I just told him they love him, and, well, I might have mentioned how they see him as their own kid, but I didn't think he'd react this badly. Oh my god, you don't remember his panic attack all those months ago? Of course he's gonna freak out. Enough! Yuichi said sternly, making them all go quiet. We need to calm him down, and you guys yelling at each other is not helping. They tried to get contact with the kid, but to no avail. So instead, they try reaching Toshi. Thankfully, the man being asleep, it was much easier to get in contact with him, and a moment later, Yoichi appeared in the man's dream. Toshinori's point of view. Toshinori, you need to wake up! Knight needs you! Toshinori woke up with a jerk and looked around frantically. He had no idea what had woken him, nor did he remember what he had dreamt about. But for some reason, adrenaline was running through his veins, urging him to move and to act. It was then that he noticed the small ball of fluff curled up next to him, and his focus immediately zeroed in on the little kitten. Oh no, Broccoli, are you all right, little one? He asked softly, voice still heavy, laced with sleep. He then gently lifted the small kitten up and held him close to his chest. Toshinori tried his best to keep quiet and not wake up Shota while he held the kitten close to his heart and hummed softly, like he had seen Shota do when Broccoli had a panic attack before. Not for the first time, Toshinori found himself wondering just what kind of life this small creature might have had before they met him. It was heartbreaking that someone so small was able to feel so much pain. After a few moments of humming and rocking, it finally seemed like Broccoli calmed down and was starting to fall asleep, purring softly against his chest. Just what hurt you so much? Toshi hummed sadly, running gentle fingers through the soft fur as he leaned back in the chair. His gaze traveled out the window and up at the moon that was standing tall and lighting up the room. For just a small moment, Toshi could have sworn he saw someone standing in the corner of the room beneath the moonlight. But when he blinked, they were gone. With a shake of his head, Toshi laid Broccoli down next to Shota and folded his arms on the mattress before falling back asleep. The next morning, when he woke up, Broccoli was gone. Izuku's point of view. They're gonna be so worried when they wake up and you aren't there, Nana said for the millionth time since they left the hospital. Well, what was I supposed to do? I didn't have much time left since I changed my form so early yesterday, Izuku hissed, walking through the park and towards his hiding place so he could get his shoes. Walking barefoot as a human in the city was not fun. Oh, I don't know. You could have told them the truth, a gruff voice said from behind him. Izuku whipped around and glared at Diagoro's transparent form, the man putting his hands up and floating back, gaining some distance. Or not, I guess. Ever since last night, Diagoro seemed to have been able to appear much easier, and Izuku dreaded the day he would have to deal with 7 actual ghosts following him around. Why is it so hard for you to accept that they care about you? En asked from inside their head. Because they don't, Izuku gritted out. He cringed once he reached the forest part of the park and had to step in the wet grass in only just his socks. Hate to burst your bubble, kiddo, but they do, Nana huffed, her arms crossed and a scowl on her face while she floated next to him. And waking up in the hospital with Broccoli nowhere to be found? It is going to seriously upset him. Is that what you want? She continued harshly. At the question, Izuku stopped, his stomach twisting in violent knots and feeling like he was going to throw up. No, that's not what I want at all. But what am I supposed to do? He asked shakingly, glancing between the 2 ghosts and looking so lost. Just stop worrying them like this. Let them know that you are all right. Both of you. How would I... Izuku muttered, only for an idea to hit him, and he quickly scrambled for his phone. He then opened his phone's camera and set up a timer before placing it on one of the tree branches, about the same height as his eye level. What are you doing? Diagoro asked curiously, floating closer while Izuku took a step back from the phone. Something that should ease their worries, Izuku answered, before promptly changing into broccoli and turning so he was facing sideways, looking like he was out for a stroll. The camera went off, and he quickly changed back into a human, wincing at the strain from overusing his quirk. But it was worth it, because now he had a picture, taken with Izuku's phone, of broccoli, although a bit blurry, walking through the forest, alive and well. Taking a deep breath, Izuku opened his contacts and shot a text along with the picture to All Might. Midoriya. Hey, how are you and Aizawa doing? And a random question, but is this your cat? You told me you have a green cat, right? Kind of small, fluffy, and with a yellow collar? Now, now they know that broccoli is safe, he said with a smile, feeling proud of his idea. Nana sighed. And you just made it so much harder for yourself to tell them you and broccoli are the same. Izuku's smile tensed. Well, good thing I don't plan on telling them then, he said, keeping his gaze firmly on the phone, his grip tightening around it. Izuku, Nana said, only to trail off when they noticed that 3 dots appeared on the screen before they got erased and appeared again. And then his phone rang, nearly giving them all a heart attack. Hello? Izuku answered hesitantly. You found him? All Might asked, sounding almost frantic. The cat? Yeah, I guess. Unless there are some more green cats lurking around. He just walked past me in the park, he lied, shuffling a bit uncomfortably in the wet and cold grass. There was a deep sigh of relief on the other side of the line, and Izuku's heart ached. They had been that worried? Nana's words from last night echoed through Izuku's mind. Because they love you, kiddo. Izuku swallowed, feeling like he was gonna pass out. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know that I saw him. Please tell Aizawa to get better soon, he rambled, wanting to end the call quickly. Midoriya, wait, All Might said hurriedly. I'm sorry, my boy, but you said you were in the park? The same one you usually train in? Yes? Could you, if it's not too much trouble. All Might suddenly trailed off, and Izuku could hear someone else, probably Aizawa, talking in the background. There was some back and forth, and Izuku wondered if he should perhaps just end the call when there was a loud click indicating he was put on speaker. What the hell are you doing walking around in that park? You should be inside where it is safe. Did almost getting abducted yesterday teach you nothing? Aizawa-sensei. Hello? How are you? Izuku said nervously, his face turning into a grimace and sweat running down his neck at the man's scolding tone. Don't avoid the question, problem child. What are you doing walking around outside after yesterday? Training? Izuku answered hesitantly. There was a string of muffled curses, and if Izuku had to guess, All Might had covered the phone with his hand to block them out. Sensei, are you okay? There was some more muffled talking, and then, finally, the hand that was covering the mic was removed so Izuku could hear them speak again. Young Midoriya? I was just wondering, but would you mind going over to our place to feed our other cat, Slushie? She must be pretty hungry by now, and it seems like Aizawa will be stuck here for a while. Izuku's eyes widened, and he was just about to come up with an excuse on why he couldn't go, but All Might didn't let him, instead quickly continuing. We're also a bit worried about her being lonely, since we're both away and Broccoli is apparently out and about, so if you want to stay there and keep her company for a while, then that would be greatly appreciated. Just until I can get back to the apartment later today. Playing the "you'd be a great help and a hero if you do this" card? Really, Toshi? You know I can't say no when you word things like that. Oh, sure, I can do that, Izuku answered shakingly. Thank you, my boy, All Might said, sounding relieved. The key is hidden behind a fake brick in the wall. I will send you the address and the instructions. Izuku blinked in confusion. We have a fake brick in the wall? Huh, I didn't know that. Toshinori's point of view. Wait, so did Broccoli walk all the way home from here? Alone? Shoda asked. I'm afraid so. Yes. Toshinori answered. Toshi, you had to take the car to get here. Well, he is pretty smart. Perhaps he took the train? There was a groan from Shota. At this point, I'm not even surprised. We need to put a leash on that damn cat, or I swear he's gonna be the death of me. Izuku's point of view. Following Toshi's instructions, Izuku headed home. Out of curiosity, he checked the wall, and, sure enough, there was a spare key. But opening the door like a human felt weird. Almost immediately after stepping foot into the apartment, his sister came running, only to stop and tilt her head in confusion when she saw him come home in his human form. Izuku chuckled and kneeled down before picking up Slushie and hugging her. Hey, sis, he whispered, burrowing his face in her soft fur. Slushie just purred happily and let him hug her for as long as he needed, occasionally stroking her face against his in a loving manner. When he finally felt calmer, he put her down and moved towards the kitchen, Slushie following closely behind. So, our dads are are still at the hospital, but Shota should be fine if he just rests. Toshi asked me to come here to feed you, he told her, pulling out the cat food and moving to refill the now empty bowls, as well as change the water. He remembered the first time he met Shota and how crazy he thought the older man was for talking to his cat like they were an actual person. But now, Izuku couldn't imagine not talking to Slushie. She was always such a great listener, after all. As soon as he had filled the bowls, Slushie started eating, and Izuku sat down next to her on the floor. It's so weird being here like this. As Izuku, knowing they know I'm here, he muttered absent-mindedly. I mean, if you told them the truth, then I'm sure they would let you stay. I can't. Izuku sighed. He could feel the other's frustration, and he crossed his arms, hugging himself tightly. Then Nana sat down next to him. You can't keep doing this, kiddo. It's not fair to any of you. Izuku just stared down at the floor and petted Slushie, letting her soft fur and gentle purrs calm him down. I don't care. I'm not losing them, he bit out. You're not gonna lose them. Nana, please, Izuku begged, shutting his eyes as the panic started coming back. I can't, he repeated, voice cracking. Nana's point of view. Nana stared sadly at the boy next to her, wishing more than anything that she could hug him right now. It's okay, kiddo, she said softly, reaching out a hand and ruffling his hair, though it obviously didn't do anything as her fingers just went through. It was frustrating, being so close to the world of the living, yet incapable of making any difference or interacting with it whatsoever. I don't want to just sit back and watch anymore. I want to help. Inside the void, the other vestiges agreed. They were getting tired of watching these self-sacrificing fools torture themselves over and over again. Izuku's point of view. Despite the guilt and unease he was feeling, Izuku stayed in the apartment and spent some more time with Slushie. All Might had mentioned getting home later to get something, so Izuku guessed he could wait in the apartment until he got back. The Vestiges were happy that he, for once, actually listened to their advice. He'd spent lots of time as a human here before, but for some reason, the fact that he was a guest and allowed to be here just made the whole experience surreal. And Izuku found himself simply walking around and looking at everything like he was seeing it for the first time. At one point, he had gotten hungry, and he contemplated what to eat. It would be rude to take from their human food, after all. But he'd also reached past his limit as a cat. He glanced at the food bowl meant for Slushie and broccoli and considered it. Then, he listened carefully inside his head. When it seemed like the vestiges were busy with one of their secret meetings, Ezekiel let his curiosity win, and he sat on the floor before picking up a piece of the wet food up. Then, cautiously, he tasted it, only to immediately recoil and almost gag at the taste. Izuku, are you okay? What the fuck are you doing? Holy shit, did you try to eat that? One of the vestiges chuckled, the others bursting out into laughter. Izuku's whole face lit up a bright red. It usually tastes good when I'm broccoli, he whined, embarrassed. Then, when his stomach growled again, he sighed and turned into his cat form, ignoring the pain in favor of getting some food in him. Should have just done this from the start, Broccoli thought, still embarrassed at having been caught doing that. You know, I'm sure they wouldn't have minded if you made a sandwich or something. Broccoli froze at those words, an icy feeling growing in his chest at the thought of making food for himself. He was suddenly not so hungry anymore. Kiddo? Without a word, Izuku turned back into a human and stood up. I gotta go, he said, panic building up. Images of Inko, of the kitchen table. Oh God, he was back in her kitchen. Why? Why was he in the kitchen? He was just about to head out the door when it opened and he collapsed with someone, nearly falling over if it weren't for the hand grabbing hold of his arm. For a moment, Izuku panicked even more. I ate something! I ate something without permission and she'll know and now she'll be mad and I can't— Young Midoriya, what's wrong? At the sound of Toshi's voice, Izuku looked up, finally noticing the man that was standing in front of him and remembering where he was. Right. I'm not there anymore. I'm home. And that's when Izuku momentarily started panicking for a completely different reason. Because he realized that he was standing in the middle of their apartment, in front of Toshi, in his human form. But then he remembered that Izuku was supposed to be there right now, and he managed to somehow calm his racing heart. All Might? Oh, sorry, I was just about to leave, he stammered, ducking his head and begging the trembling of his limbs to stop. All Might frowned down at him, letting go of his arm in favor of laying his hands on Izuku's shoulder, the touch grounding. Midoriya, why are you in such a hurry? Did something happen? The man asked gently, leaning down to look at him. No, just, anxiety? Izuku stammered, avoiding All Might's gaze. I'm sorry, I've already overstayed my welcome, and I should just go. No, my boy. You haven't overstayed at all, All Might said with a smile, giving his shoulders a squeeze. How about I make us some hot chocolate, and then I can drop you off by your place on my way back to the hospital. Not feeling like arguing, Izuku just wordlessly nodded his head. Izuku followed All Might back into the kitchen and felt the same panic as before coming back. He was dreading sitting down at the kitchen table with the man. Do you watch anime? Izuku blurted out. Huh? All Might seemed taken aback by the random question. But then, once the words registered, he lit up. I'd love to, my boy. Which anime do you have in mind? There is this recent one that is— Izuku let the rambling voice of All Might wash over him, and he found himself accepting the hot chocolate with a shaky smile, before they moved out into the living room to watch some TV together. As soon as he sat down, he got bombarded by Slushie, and he laughed heartily, struggling to put down the mug before he hugged her tightly. Hey, Slushie, he giggled, while she bumped her head against his cheek. The sound of All Might laughing had him freeze, and he looked up to see the man grinning at him, holding his phone. Wait, are you recording? Izuku squeaked. Perhaps, All Might laughed. Gotta show Aizawa once his bandages come off. The man then seemed to consider them for a while. I gotta say though, Slushie is usually a pretty friendly cat, but I don't think I've ever seen her act this affectionate with someone she just met before. Izuku felt himself tense up, but he forced a smile to stay on his face. I gave her food, he answered with a shrug. That, usually makes you pretty popular with the animals. That earned him another laugh, and he smiled at the sound, hugging Slushie closer. It was about one episode later that Izuku realized he was actually sitting here, next to Toshi, inside their home, just like he had so often dreamed of doing for so many years now. And, feeling overwhelmed, he found himself ducking his head to bury his face against Slushie's fur, trying to will the tears not to fall. Are you all right, my boy? He heard Toshi ask, feeling him shift nervously next to him on the couch. Yes, I'm fine. Just, I should probably head back soon, Izuku shakingly answered, keeping his face firmly pressed against Slushie, who, as always, was just happily purring. Ah, yes. I should probably head back to the hospital too, All Might said with a sigh. I just need to pack some things, and then I can drive you back to your place. All right? Izuku nodded, still not looking up even as All Might stood up and left the room. Toshinori's point of view. Toshinori re-entered the living room, bag in hand, and looked over at their student. The kid was still sitting on the couch, cuddling with Slushie. Say, Midoriya? He called out hesitantly. Midoriya glanced up at him, his eyes looking a bit teary. What would you say about staying the night, my boy? I will spend the night at the hospital with Aizawa, and I'm sure Slushie would enjoy the company. I can't possibly, the boy protested. It really would ease our worries a lot if we knew someone was here looking after our cats. Toshinori was quick to add, wanting to drive home the point that Midoriya would do them a huge favor. After all, they can get very lonely otherwise. Oh, and there's a spare bedroom and food in the fridge, but if you'd rather go home, or if you're busy, then I understand. It's entirely up to you, my boy. Toshinori had a feeling that the kid, for whatever reason, didn't want to return to the apartment they knew he lived in. No matter what the authorities said, it was clear that something was definitely not right. And he really hoped Midoriya would say yes, because while it was true that it would calm them to know the cats weren't lonely, it was mostly Midoriya they were worried about. Knowing their student was safe in their own home would really calm them immensely. Are are you sure it's okay? The boy asked hesitantly, glancing between Toshinori and the floor. Definitely, Toshinori answered with a smile. Just as long as you don't break anything and you keep the windows and door locked. Oh, and Broccoli might get home soon, and he's not really fond of new people. But as long as you leave him alone, it should be fine. Make sure to properly introduce yourself so he knows who you are. Midoriya let out a snort at that. Hey, don't laugh, Toshinori huffed, though he felt his own smile widening. The little fella has an intelligence quirk, and he understands more than you would think. Trust me, I know. Sorry, I wasn't laughing at broccoli, the boy chuckled, his face a bit red. I just. Never mind. But, um, if you're sure, then yes, I'd like to stay the night. But only one night. Then I need to leave, Midoriya said, looking stern at the prospect of this being a one-time occurrence. Toshinori had to suppress the urge to cheer. This was so much more than either Shoda or him could have hoped for. Thank you, my boy, he said, unable to keep the relief out of his voice. It's, no problem, really, Midoriya mumbled, rubbing the back of his neck. Well, I'd better go now. You two behave, and tell Broccoli hi from me. Toshinori called out, turning to walk out of the door. Okay, bye, Dad. Toshinori's step faltered, and he whipped around to stare at Midoriya, who had a hand clamped over his mouth and was staring at him with wide eyes. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Midoriya? I mean, that was a slip of the tongue. Really, I, I didn't. Midoriya. Yes? The boy squeaked, his whole body going tense as a rod. Toshinori sighed and smiled at him. It's okay, my boy. I really don't mind, he told him gently, noticing how Midoriya's eyes widened even further. But, um, that said, we should probably talk about it. Not now, though, because I really need to go. But another day, perhaps, he said carefully, watching the clock and feeling worried he would miss the doctor's appointment. Midoriya nodded, avoiding his gaze and looking uncomfortable. Right, yes. Well, bye. All my. He stammered nervously. No dad, huh? Toshinori thought, a bit disappointed. But he didn't let it show and instead smiled at the boy brightly, even though the kid probably didn't see it. Bye, Midoriya. Don't hesitate to call if you need anything. Izuku's point of view. Please, just kill me now, Izuku whined, his face buried in his hands, while he laid curled up in a fetal position on the couch. Slushie was climbing on top of him, her front paws at his shoulder and hind legs at his hips, probably wondering what he was doing. His head was filled to the brim with laughter. The sound grated on his nerves, and only made him want to curl up and die even more. Kiddo, that was adorable. Bye, Dad. So precious. Oh my god. You guys are not helping right now, Izuku cried out, causing them to laugh even more. Toshinori's point of view. He made it to the hospital in time. They were about to remove the bandages over Shota's eyes in just under 10 minutes. Toshinori hadn't exactly wanted to leave before then, but Shota had insisted, saying something about Toshi just making Shota more nervous, and he'd rather he went and checked on the brat. And now he's really glad that he did, because if there was one thing that Shota needed right now, it was some good news. And Toshi was pretty sure this would cheer him up. He took a deep breath before swinging the door open. Shota, you won't believe what just happened, Toshinori said, walking into the room with a smile unseen by the man. What? Came the tired voice of his husband. Midoriya just called me Dad. Again, he said, grinning from ear to ear. Toshinori noticed how Shota's whole body twitched, as if he tried to sit up. Wait, really? The man asked. Yes, really, Toshinori chuckled. Oh, and I offered him to stay at our place, and he will spend the night there. Hope you don't mind, he then added sheepishly. Although they had talked about having the kid stay with them before, this wasn't exactly a planned decision. He'd hate for Shota to feel like he had gone behind his back. What? Of course I don't mind. But how the hell did you manage to get him to agree with that? Shota asked. Toshinori laughed a bit. I kind of blamed us for needing someone to keep the cats company. Ah, smart move, the man said, approvingly. Shota's point of view. There was a knock on the door, and it was finally time to remove the bandages covering his eyes. If the healing quirk worked correctly, then he should be able to see, but there was no guarantee it had worked. Needless to say, he was nervous. Shota felt the bandages get removed, and he took a deep breath before he blinked his eyes open, wincing at the light, and then he saw Toshi staring worriedly at him. I can see, Shota confirmed, causing a grin to appear on the blonde's face, his blue eyes glistening with tears. The rest of the bandages would take another couple of weeks before they could be removed, and he still wasn't sure how this would affect his quirk or hero work. But for now, Shota was just happy to have his eyesight back. After doing a couple of tests, the doctor left the room, leaving him alone with his husband. There's something I wanted to show you, Toshi said gently, before opening his phone and showing it to Shota. There was a video playing, and Shota felt his heart melt at the sight of Midoriya hugging Slushie and laughing, for once looking like a happy kid. Yes, definitely happy to still have my eyesight, Shota thought, with a smile as he watched the video. It seemed like Midoriya finally noticed the camera, and Shota snorted at the boy's embarrassed squeak before the video ended. I'm surprised how fast Slushie took a liking to him, Shota hummed. That's what I thought too, Toshi answered, pocketing his phone. Want to know Midoriya's answer to that? He then asked, with an amused grin. What? He gave her food, the blonde answered, making quotation marks in the air. That caused Shota to laugh. Oh, yeah, that tends to do it, he chuckled. Broccoli's point of view. Broccoli stood outside the door to Shota's hospital room, listening to them laughing together. He had been hesitant whether to show up here or not, considering Izuku, was technically told to stay at home with Slushie. But he was worried. Which perhaps was dumb, but his dads were grown-ups and could take care of themselves, after all. With a shake of his head, Broccoli turned around and started to sneak his way back out of the hospital. But then he stopped, his ears twitching when he heard a sound. It sounded like someone was crying? A child? On impulse, and despite the vestige's warnings, Broccoli walked closer to the sound and found a kid who couldn't be no older than 4 standing in the hallway, crying. Are they lost? Mama! Where are you? The kid cried. The kid sobbed and, yup, definitely a lost child. Midoriya looked around for help, but there was no one else in the hallway. Kiddo, I know you want help, but seriously, don't. Someone will find him eventually. He only hesitated for another small moment before he made his mind up and rounded the corner, making his presence known with a meow. The kid hiccuped and looked down at him, and then they gasped. A kitty! Broccoli walked closer and bumped his head against their leg comfortingly, causing them to giggle. So cute! The kid squealed, seemingly having temporarily forgotten the fact that they were lost. He saw 2 small hands reach for him, and he willed himself not to panic, instead standing still while the child petted him, before eventually picking him up and hugging him, being surprisingly gentle for someone so young. Are you lost too, little kitty? The kid asked. Broccoli considered the kid for a while, before he looked them in the eye and shook his head no. The kid gasped. You know what I say? He nodded, causing the kid to squeal in joy. Eee! That's so cool! Do you, do you know where Mama is? Broccoli nodded, before meowing and pointing one paw down the hallway he knew led to the reception. Oh, you want me to go there? Another nod, and another giggle. Together they made their way through the maze-like layout of the hospital, Broccoli being carried and pointing the kid in the right direction. The whole time, the kid was babbling about their mama and their school and a bunch of other stuff that was barely coherent. Broccoli politely listened, nodding along and purring comfortingly. They finally reached the reception, and Broccoli was about to sneak away before anyone else saw him. But before he could wiggle his way out of their grip, the kid just hugged him tighter and started talking to the nurse behind the desk, gaining their attention. Excuse me? Do you know where my mama is? Kitty told me she's here, the kid sweetly asked, looking up at them with shy eyes. The nurse was one of the ones Broccoli had met yesterday, and their eyes widened comically when they landed on the green cat. They then seemed to shake away their shock and tucked a strand of brown hair back into their ponytail, keeping her face carefully calm and friendly. Of course, dearie. I'll help you find your mama. What is her name? The kid answered, and the nurse talked through the intercom, telling them that the kid was there. Not even 2 minutes later, a woman came running and hugged the kid close. Thank you for finding him. I was so worried. It's that little guy you should thank, the nurse said, bringing attention to the cat still in Izuku's arms. How the woman hadn't noticed him before that moment was beyond him. Broccoli knew he was small, but damn, lady, you could have crushed me. A cat? The woman asked, tilting her head in confusion. Intelligence quirk, apparently. He helped your child get here safely, the nurse explained with a smile, leaning her elbows against her desk. She almost looked amused. Oh, thank you, little one. The kid finally, although a bit reluctantly, put Broccoli down on the desk, and they waved goodbye. As soon as they were out of view, Broccoli shook his fur, not really liking how their smell was sticking to him. He couldn't wait to get home so he could groom himself. Now then, little one, the nurse said, making Broccoli freeze and turn to look at her. He was just about to bolt when the nurse catched him, wrapping him in his worst enemy, a towel. I am pretty sure we told your family that you weren't allowed to wander around the hospital, the lady said sternly, though there was an amused glint in her eyes. She then, to Broccoli's horror, sent another message across the intercom. Would Yagi Toshinori please come to the reception? There is someone here waiting for you. Broccoli whined and struggled, but there was no escaping this soft prison. The whole time, the nurse was simply watching him with amusement, until he eventually gave up with a huff, accepting his defeat. A few moments later, Toshi showed up, looking confused. Then, their eyes met, and Toshi coughed violently. Broccoli? What are you doing here? The nurses looked at him curiously. You didn't bring him? She asked, tilting her head. No, I swear I didn't, Toshi answered honestly, shaking both his head and arms in front of him. He must have taken the bus or something. He's pretty smart like that. The nurse hummed, looking amused. I can see that. Well, he is also quite the little hero, actually. Helped the lost kid find the reception, you know? She said softly. He did? Yes, she answered, considering him. We normally don't allow pets. Even people with animal hybrid quirks are close to going over the line because of allergies, she explained. But from an ethical standpoint, I would say he is definitely more on the hybrid side rather than a simple pet. So I will overlook it this time. Just try to keep a closer eye on him so this doesn't happen again, she said kindly, handing handling him handing him the still trapped kitten. Yes, of course. Thank you, Toshi answered, taking the offered broccoli burrito with an embarrassed smile. The nurse smiled before, once again, looking thoughtful, considering them. You know, you could have him become a licensed therapy animal. That way he would be allowed most places. And the hospital could use some more therapy and support animals, especially for the kids. Oh, I'll have to talk with my partner about that. But what do you say, little guy? Would that be something you'd like? Toshi asked, looking down at him curiously. Broccoli thought for a moment. He was going to be a hero, after all, and helping that child, even as Broccoli, had felt really nice. And it would give him more mobility in this form. As long as he had a close eye on his time, he should be fine, right? With that resolve, Broccoli looked up at Toshi and nodded. The man chuckled. Well then, I will speak to Shota about it. Great! I actually have a few therapy animals myself. Hope to see you join us soon. Oh, and here's my number in case you have any questions about the program. My name is Hattori Keiko, by the way, she said enthusiastically, handing him a card. Toshi accepted the business card with a smile. Thank you, Hattori-san. Toshi stormed back into Shota's room, nearly giving the poor man a heart attack. Guess who came to visit? He said cheerfully, holding the broccoli burrito high up in the air. What the fuck? It's broccoli. I can see that. But just how? Author's notes. Shota is slowly descending into madness over his weird cat. Me. Okay, here we go. Time to move this story forward. Also me. Adds a scene where Izu eats cat food. Me. What the fuck, brain? Whether that scene was taken from IRL experiences is something I will neither deny nor confirm. LOL. So, anyway, next chapter. Prep for sports festival / sports festival speed run. We're gonna skip most of the sports festival arc and only jump to the more impactful scenes plus original stuff. Hope you look forward to it. Also, just a heads up, I've decided to move the dorm system to earlier in the story, so they will move into the dorms right after the hero killer arc. For, story purposes. And that is the end of chapter 16 of the one they call Broccoli by Texiliaz. It's 3 a.m. I have to be up early tomorrow, and I am so tired, but I had to get this done for you guys, for the fans, for the fans. All that said, please go show the author Texiliaz some love. They've done an amazing job writing the story, and it's so good. It's so good. It's so impressive. I certainly cannot write this good. Every time I've ever tried to write a fan fiction, it does not go well. Mostly because I can never finish the goddamn thing. Uh, anyways, ignoring all of what I just said, I really hope that you guys enjoyed today's video, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye!